Pacific time. I don't see anybody else in the waiting room, so I will go ahead and get started and let people in as they join. I want to welcome everybody. This is actually our first Lupus Health Conference for 2026, presented by the California Lupus Foundation. My name is Elizabeth Savage. I'm the executive director for California Lupus Foundation. As you may know, as of November 1st, Lupus Foundation of Northern California and Lupus Foundation of Southern California have merged into the California Lupus Foundation. We are very excited about this new opportunity to help lupus patients and their families, caretakers across the state. Again, I wanted to remind you, this is an open meeting, and Matthew, our speakers, would like to be interactive as much as possible. So if you have questions, you can put your hand up, put a note in the chat, or simply unmute and ask your question throughout the presentation. And we will also be, Lori Day is our Director of Communications. She will be sending out a survey, since this is not a webinar-based format. She will be emailing a survey after the conference to all attendees or everybody who registered, so that we can hear from you. We want to know your thoughts on the conference. We want to improve where needs to be improved, and we certainly want to present topics that are important to all of you. And so we want to thank you for your participation, and we also want to thank you for participating in the survey. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Matthew Wingell. Matthew is the founder and director of the Gina P Wingell Foundation Incorporated for severely disabled families. I believe that's your mother, Matthew. And he has dedicated himself to supporting families affected by lupus. Inspired by his mother, he draws on personal experience to help others navigate severe financial challenges with empathy and clarity. As a trusted financial planner, he partners with the Lupus Foundation of America and leads initiatives through the Gina P Wingell Foundation, the National Lupus Disability Relief Effort, advocating for greater access and lasting support within the disabled community. And we're very, very pleased to have him speak with us. He's spoken about disability issues with us in the past, and we're very grateful for his time. And I want to welcome Matthew.
Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth. Really warm and humble opening and welcome. Yeah, as Elizabeth mentioned, this is the first time that I've had an opportunity to speak with Elizabeth and meet her personally. But we have actually had a couple of other run-ins with the other health conferences. This is our second time expanding on the disability conversation. So we kind of figured, though, why don't we open it, try and make it as engaging as possible and as interactive as we can get. So well, with that being said, too, I figured let me introduce some of the broader concepts to this, get the conversation going, and then I'll turn it over to you guys so that any of these important questions that you have about applying for disability, meaning disability insurance, you're going to have at least a much better way of how to approach it. And hopefully, I'll answer maybe a lot of questions with my broad overview, but then give us the opportunity to get a little bit more into the finer details and see what kind of questions, what sort of experiences that you have out there. With that being said as well, just as a quick disclaimer before we get going, I do want to mention that any of the advice or the suggestions, ideas that I give you is not to be considered legal advice. In the event that you do need that extra layer of protection or oomph to your case, I can help you to figure out who we need to talk to. But for the purposes of this conversation, if you really need a legal advisement, this is not the conversation for this. I usually coordinate between I'm the insurance expert, and I would coordinate with your attorney to make sure that we can get you the best outcome possible. But just as a quick disclaimer before we get into the conversation, what we're really going to be talking about, though, is California state disability insurance. And this is a really important thing for lupus warriors, particularly to know, because I call this your second line of defense against both temporary and permanent disability. And what do I mean by it being your second line of defense? Really, most of the individuals that we speak with are either W-2 traditional employees, meaning they are either hourly or salary employees, or they're self-employed and maybe they're 1099, which would be independent contractors. And for most of those W-2 employees, though, they do have paid time off, sick leave, vacation time, and that could be anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks. And typically, if we're looking at a disability scenario where you guys need this insurance, those would be your first line of defense, exhausting the sick leave, the paid time off, and the vacation. And if we need additional coverage or more income replacement, this is then where this state disability insurance can come into place for you. So let me just quickly introduce what it really is and how it works. And there's only 5 states right now in the whole continental US that is offering state disability insurance, California being one of them. And as an employee, like I mentioned, you are paying this out of your salary or out of your hourly deductions. So you'll see on your pay stub something called CASD, CASDI, and this is actually California disability insurance. And so everybody who is paying into this program is eligible for the program. But for today, with you guys who's at different levels, different areas and stages of the application, maybe this is the first time you're being introduced to this. Maybe you've submitted your claim and you don't know what's happening. Or again, maybe you're looking to put this in, and hopefully this conversation then allows you to be able to do that. But this is a state-run program, and it is designed for short-term income replacement. So after we would have exhausted things like your paid time off or your sick leave, and the disability is extending further, now this state disability insurance would come into place. And what I mean by short-term is that it's not going to cover you for life, but it does have a maximum benefit period of 52 weeks. So it can essentially cover you for a full year. Again, with disability planning, we have different lines and layers of defense. So this state disability insurance is really key part of it, but this is going to take you for the next year of your disability. Now, a lot of people have questions about how it fits in with Social Security disability, workers' comp. We're going to answer all those questions today, hopefully, too. But I do want to quickly just put into the chat a really important URL, and this is actually the state website portal for this disability insurance. So for keeping along with the conversation, I think that if I share this with the chat, everybody should get it and see it. But this is actually the California state portal to be able to apply for, receive, and check on your claim through California. And they make it pretty easy overall to do this, but there is a lot of things to learn. And so I want to encourage people, take some notes. I'm going to do my best to not have any jargon or make it complicated, but it can catch up how much information that we share. And then, you know, as many questions that you might find that other people are asking the same questions that you have. So that portal, though, is really where we're going to go in order to be able to apply for these benefits. And like I said, they can last you for a year. Now, anybody who's paying into CASD and they see it on their pay stub can get this. So even part-time employees, full-time employees, you are eligible to receive this benefit. Who is really eligible for it, though, is a matter of review by something called the EDD, or the Employment Development Division of California. And they essentially look at these claims, they review the medical records, and they're going to determine if you are eligible to receive these benefits. Now, how this applies to SSDI, if there's people applying for Social Security disability income, but you guys are in California, it is really a good idea to apply for both of these things at the same time. Why? Because your short-term disability through this disability insurance can come to you in as little as 1 to 3 weeks. Whereas the application process for Social Security disability income could stretch anywhere between, we've seen instances of 9 months to a year and a half. And that's just simply because of the rate of declines and denials. That's a part of that process. So these benefits can come to you a lot quicker. And what's great about them too is that because you guys are paying it out of your wages, when you do get SSDI, it's not going to draw down on what benefit you're receiving there. So you can get them both, and it's not going to pull down on your SSDI. Workers' comp is a little bit different. Okay, now if you got this is all for non-work related injuries or illnesses, like a flare from lupus, or an infusion or a doctor's visit, or a treatment plan that's pulling you down from the ability to do all your duties. That's what this is going to assist with. But this, going back to the EDD, they're the primary decision maker on this between them and your doctor. So hopefully a lot of questions that I'm going to help you answer is, hey, how do you actually apply for this the right way? What are some of those things that the EDD is looking for that would allow you to get a clear path to approval and hopefully reduce down the number of denials and rejections that we get? It's really critical that these different systems have these layers in place, because I will tell you, there are plenty of people right now who are on disability who do have the capacity to return to work, but they just simply don't want to. And for the lupus warriors who truly need these benefits, there needs to be some kind of layers there for them as well to make sure that they're qualifying the right people to receive these benefits. Final quick notes on this short-term disability program, and then we'll see what questions are out there and what that looks like, is that it is short term, so only 52 weeks. And what is the kind of expectations of the benefit if you get approved? Well, we see ranges that vary quite significantly, but you can generally say that if you are at about 63,000 of annual income, you're very likely to see about 90% income replacement through state disability insurance, which is pretty good. And that benefit goes up to 1,700 per week, just a little over 7,000 per month maximum. So you can see that it does provide a significant amount of income replacement. That is not something that you will not want to apply for. The more income you make, the lower the amount's going to go. So as we get closer to six figures and higher, generally that rate drops to about 70% income replacement. But again, that's quite prototypical because even individual insurance and group insurance being paid for by your employer, this is different because it's paid for by you. But we generally see that's the same rate of income replacement. So it's staying up to par with that. Now, the reason why it's not at 100% is because they don't want to incentivize people to stay on disability. They want to incentivize return to work. And so this program, although it can cover you for a year, if you went beyond the year, this is really where SSDI is going to start to come in. And again, everyone's disability scenario is different. So people might be temporarily disabled, or they might say, I am permanent, I cannot get back to the workplace at all. And in each of those different instances, how we would approach it would maybe be a little bit different. But that is how SSDI works with SDI. That is kind of the introduction to the state disability insurance. And for today, like I said, it's mostly going to be this conversation is directed towards this California disability insurance. And the only other place that we see you can reach out and call and try to get assistance on this, but this is really a great opportunity if you have questions because you're not really going to have as much personalized insight into it, and it is difficult to get a hold of people. It's just like any other agency or entity. Um, Although the response time and the turnaround is typically pretty quick with only a week, 3 weeks. Just getting a hold of somebody to talk to about what is best for your scenarios, not always the easiest thing to do. So with all that being said, we got a lot of information to share. I do want to see though, because this is your time. So what kind of questions do you guys have out there? What has your experiences been? And please feel free, share as with as much liberty as you'd like. You don't got to go into your full intimate history of whatever, but whatever level that you feel comfortable sharing with us, I'd love to see what kind of questions that we do have out there.
Just a reminder, everybody comes into the meeting muted. So if you have your question, you can unmute down at the bottom. Usually it's down at the bottom left of your screen from Zoom. So are there any questions that you have for Matthew? Or any issues? Like Matthew said, that you're willing to share, knowing this is recorded. Uh, we want to protect your privacy, but if there's anything you want to share, or of somebody or some situation or a hypothetical, um, anybody?
And if we are a little shy, I'm happy to take questions in the chat too, either whenever, through the meeting or at whatever point. I'm happy to take those kind of questions, but I'd love to like hear from anybody, see from anybody.
I think we might have a shy group, Matthew.
Just a bit, huh? Yeah, yeah. No, that's okay. I can share a little bit more about some details here, and maybe it'll inspire some other questions. But if like anybody does have something that pops to your head, please feel free. This is an open group, and nobody is here to be any bit otherwise than helpful. So whatever
Do you
kind of
have
questions are out there.
I do have a question if nobody else has a question right now. You
Sure.
mentioned that this is if you're a W-2 employee and you're paying into the state, you can see that tax being taken out. But what if you are a contract employee, not employee, but a contractor for 1099 or self-employed? How
Yes.
do you file for state disability? Or you go right to Social Security?
It's a really great question. Very important because we see that this is a significant amount of employees and actually no, they do not automatically get state disability insurance as a 1099 independent contractor. There's actually something else. It's called DIEC, which is Disability Insurance Elective Coverage. And as a self-employed individual, you would actually have to register for this program. Once you register for that, you actually then begin making contributions just like you would as a W-2 employee, but on your own behalf. Then you would be eligible for the program. But that is a fantastic question, Elizabeth, because like I said, even side gigs and all these other jobs, if you don't know that, yeah, you do actually have to register beforehand. So if you are self-employed, you haven't registered, um, that I could also I should also, I'll throw the URL for that in the chat too. But essentially, it's a very easy process. That's definitely a much quicker turnaround than something like applying for disability. But you need your name, your business, your EIN, register with them, start making your contributions, and then you can become eligible for those benefits.
Basically, you're insuring yourself, but
Yeah.
through the state system
Yes.
versus, you know, self-insuring.
Yes, and that's still an option as well. Even with state disability insurance, you can get your own individual coverage. And there's other forms of disability coverage that might help the business as well that you would want to look into, that might protect more of the business than just the income replacement. But that is definitely a really important question for those self-employed individuals. And eventually you're not going to see the CAS-D on like your payment stub, but that is the same place that your contributions are going to be going to, is being able to pay in that pool so that when you need it, it's there.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I mean, like I said, please guys, if you want to, if you have any questions or maybe we'll inspire some more, let me share a little bit more though about what it really means to
I
be
raised my hand.
eligible,
Oops,
or
sorry.
maybe we got
Sorry, I had my
we have someone.
microphone off. I had a question. I can wait till
Sure.
later.
No, go ahead, please.
I'm not Rachel Kaufman. I'm her husband, Dean.
I wasn't sure. I didn't want to, you know how it is nowadays, so
I'm the
I wasn't
lupus
sure.
patient. He's the supporter.
um,
I say.
my question is regarding when you file these disability claims, are you required to have all the medical records available at the time that you file, or do you just sign a release and let them go and get the records on their own?
No, no. You do need as good documentation and records as well as specific documentation before you go to apply. This is also another great question, and I forget the gentleman's name. I know Rachel is in the background there, but
Dean.
what was Dean? Dean. No, as part of this application process, once you go onto that website that I shared with you, they make it very simple to apply in a sense that you would see a login, you create your login, and then right at the top, it's going to say file a claim. You click file a claim, and your application portal comes up. In that portal, it's going to ask you for that documentation. Now, now here's kind of a part. Yes, you're kind of right, but really no, you do need this medical documentation records all ready to go. Once you apply, what's going to happen is you apply through and it's going to assign you a number. You actually then have to go back to your medical provider, provide them that number, and they are going to put those records in for you. But essentially, what they're putting in is the medical certification of your disability. Now, this isn't a, now I'm going to expand on your question a little bit too, because sometimes we see that these doctors, they put in very vague notes. They'll say like back pain or stress. What we're really looking for with EDD is that you really get the doctors to explain to them, hey, I have back pain and this is preventing me from doing XYZ at my job. So, whatever duties you're performing, making sure that those medical records align with the ability to explain that disability. Because oftentimes we see those records and yeah, they literally it just says stress. And maybe it'll say what they're doing to treat it, but what they're looking for is how's that stress impairing your ability to do those duties. For everyone's sake on this conversation, get yourself a just a regular spiral notebook if you have to, and begin medically journaling for yourselves. Everything that happens, including your conversations, who you're talking to, what appointments you have. Because when you come to these benefits and you either have denials or rejection, it's going to be your first line of defense. But for the simplicity of Dean's simplifying the question, yeah, having those medical records up front, ready to go, is not only going to make it clearer for EDD, but it could really prevent you from getting that denial. One of the biggest red flags that they have is inconsistent or unclear medical records. So have it all ready to go. Work with your doctor, let them know that you are planning to apply for this and tell them that you've had this conversation with your advisors so that they can be sure that when they write these records they're doing it in a way that frames it so that they can carefully and consistently explain how that is impacting your ability to work. But really great question, Dean. Really important stuff.
I have a follow up to
Sure.
that. So my wife has been on leave from work, disability leave. I don't know what you call it. What do you call it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
She
well,
had
disability.
is it paid time off or is it just is it this
she's in the
uh
PERS. She's in the PERS system,
oh, okay.
CalPERS, and so she's a government employee, and
Hmm.
so her lupus got bad enough that she had in a flare a couple of times where she had to take. I think one of them was 9 months and one of them was 6 months when she was on disability leave, and that she was getting paid through the third party, whatever that provider was. Um, uh, Not quite her full compensation, but then she was able to get back to work at some point. It looks like we may be at that point again at some point in the near future where she needs to do that again for a third time in the last 5 years.
I see.
And I'm wondering if she did go on that type of a benefit where she's not working and getting paid for it. Can we apply for SDI and SSDI at the same time that she's on that disability?
Really great question. By any chance, is she a teacher?
No, no.
City.
No.
She works for
City.
a city
Okay.
parks and rec.
Okay, very good. So with PERS coming into the question, it's a little bit different for her. PERS actually does provide some additional layers of disability mechanisms. If we exhaust those mechanisms and we actually are disabled within the timeframes, if you're paying through CASD and that's on your stub, you can actually apply for these benefits. Now, like I said a little earlier, because these come in sooner, if you guys are eventually planning that SSDI, which will be your long-term benefit, you can theoretically apply. It might become a headache if you're trying to manage all these things. But yes, you can theoretically apply for all of these things at once, and it doesn't harm you or hurt you at all to make the application. So I would say yes. Now with PERS, like I said, because that's a different system, that is the public system, as you are a public employee. So I'm not exactly sure what that carrier was out there for you guys too in California, wherever your location was. It
It was
pretty it
Lena.
varies.
Have you ever heard of
Well,
Lena? Lina? Lena?
yeah, that's familiar. That is familiar. I guess that is locally what you guys see. You see a lot of different carriers that actually help to facilitate the program. Over here in New Jersey, we have our own. And but whatever the carriers are, yeah, no, absolutely. It would not hurt you at all to apply at the same time because SDI, meaning your state disability insurance, actually has coordination of benefits. Now, this is important to understand, though, Dean and Rachel, is that you're never going to make more than 100% of your income. So whether it's coming through PERS, SDI, SSDI, they're not going to let you go over your 100%. So they're going to like if you apply for this through EDD, they're going to look at if you're making income from other sources. And if you're making some PERS income there, they're going to make that proportional to the loss. So if you whatever that percentage is, maybe they'll cover that 30% gap or whatever it might be for you. I'm just assuming that that's probably where it was. In that instance, you can probably see that you would cover that gap as long as you are making those contributions. So again, it doesn't hurt you at all to apply. I would say, yeah, please do so, apply. And then if you are looking that this maybe is going to be something that would be permanent, right now, it seems like it's a recurrent situation. It's coming on and off and on and off. That's where you want to really stick to exhausting these layers. But if the severity, and again, I'm not your healthcare provider or even her, um, whatever she advocates for, if she knows that she's going to become permanently disabled, you want to start working on SSDI as soon as possible. Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But thank you for the question. Really, really good stuff and very important. Anybody else got any other questions or would like me to share a little bit more and just kind of expand on? Is there any? I didn't really check if there was any in the chat here.
No, I don't see them in the chat. I've been trying to monitor that for you.
Well, really great stuff. I'll share a little bit more about these insurances. Maybe I'll open up some more ideas. Like I said, just go ahead and stop me, but I do want to make sure that we use all the time and give you as much info as we can. So, I mentioned the idea that it could replace up to 90%. That's a lot of percentage. And there's a whole debate right now on how should we fund disability? Should it be state funded, employer funded, employee funded? So that comes then to a question, is this a taxable benefit? And it is taxable in a sense that you're actually seeing about 1% of your wages being taken to support this program, a little over 1%. Now you get outside of California and in New Jersey, New York, some of the other states that have it, that rate changes too. But the whole debate becomes because someone's got to carry the cost. It's either be us, the state, somebody's got to be there to carry the cost to be able to provide for people who become sick and injured. And it's only recently that we've actually put in some of these protections like state disability insurance. So will we see it in more states? Probably. But for people who move out of California, can you get this disability insurance? Yes, actually. It is possible that even if you move outside of California, if you were paying into this system at the time of the disability event, and you might live in Oregon, New York, New Jersey, you actually can still go and get these benefits. And vice versa, it provides back pay to benefits. So if you've been out of work for 2, 3 weeks and you're waiting for money to come in, it will actually pay back payment to you for that time that you're waiting. So there's a couple of really powerful features there, meaning that you can get outside the state, and as long as you're within that time frame, you can qualify for these benefits. You can get up to that 90% potential income replacement. And it's relatively cheap, only about 1% taking out of your wages. But again, if more states start to do this, maybe it will drive the cost down. If more people start to say put it the cost onto the employers, it might drive the cost up. There's a lot of different ways that that affects it from a bigger picture standpoint that it's hard to come by. Some of the other common questions, though, is, like, hey, would your employer ever know about your diagnosis? No. Actually, believe it or not, this is totally separate from your employer. So this is another great feature is that sometimes your employer with your group insurance, they can get in the way. This is all done through you, your doctor, and the state. So whether your employer likes it or not, if they approve your benefits, there's no way for them to dispute it. You will see those benefits paid to you, which is really important to know. And at that same rate, your employer, even though it's going out through that, it's connected to your job, they have no way of knowing what is the reasoning behind this. They only know that you're going to be out for some time. So I think that those are really important things to know about because if you're concerned about having this conversation with your employer, which you do want to have, don't be afraid to share with them what's going on. But again, keep what's intimate to you and only share with them what's at your comfort levels. But it's important to know that if you apply for this, they're not going to have any way to know what's happening and they're not going to be able to avoid it, deny it, or get in the way of that at all. But you do want to have this conversation with your employer first because there's a couple of other alternatives as well. There's something called modified duties or light duties. And maybe what you're experiencing doesn't necessarily qualify you for this short-term disability because your employer can make reasonable accommodations and they will actually reduce down either your workload or the hours that you're actually having to put in, or even just the actual duties. Maybe it included a lot of lifting or crouching or movement, and now you can't really do that anymore. Maybe there's other areas, though, that you can continue to be a productive employee and go ahead and work in those places too. So I would say that for anybody who you have to bring in the whole team. And I wouldn't say that your employer is your best advocate, but you have to let them know and be aware of this situation because they will have to put in an ability to make some of those accommodations for you first. And that also then becomes a question of where does your doctor stand of the disability? Do they actually believe that this is a long-term disability, a temporary disability? Can they actually justify you having these duties be either lightened or permanently taken out? Where is that and where's the severity? Where does it stand? So this is why you do need to incorporate your insurance professional, your doctor, and your employer to have this conversation so that you can really coordinate where is the best approach and let everyone know what's going on. Make sure that the doctor puts it in. Now, going back to Dean's question earlier about the medical records, another big red flag that happens, believe it or not, is that your doctor doesn't put in the certification on time. How long do we have to apply for this? We only have 49 days. We have 49 days from the start of the disability until the date that we put in our application to get approved. And if we don't put in our application, then it's an immediate rejection if we go out of the 49 days. So we cannot lose that. It's really important at this stage to not be, up your doctor's neck, but kind of be a little bit on them to make sure that they get those certifications in as timely as possible. But knowing that they have to be written to a degree that's going to properly and consistently share what the actual treatment plan is and how the impairment is impacting their job. You don't want it to be a rush order. But you do have a short window. That month normally flies by, especially when you're looking at where's the other options? What am I supposed to do? Can I work here? Can I get another job? Am I going to be out of work? I don't know what's happening. That month and a little bit of change really does fly by quick. So work with your doctor to get that certification in and don't let them miss the deadline. Make sure they are aware of it, that they know what date it is, and that they have that number from your portal as soon as possible. Right as soon as you make your account, I think it comes to you instantly. It's either it comes to you in an email or it pops up right there on the screen. It might be a little bit different versus if you're applying for it on the phone versus the computer, how that looks. But it should pop up pretty instantly. And then you want to bring that number to your doctor and let them know that you're applying for state disability. Time to get in my records. We got 49 days from an X date. And this is how I want them to go. Don't also be afraid to talk to your doctor about, hey, I want to make sure that you note this in the file. Because of my back pain, I'm unable to perform this duty. Make sure that that's noted. Make sure that you talk to your doctor about that so that that's all included in the records. Now, a couple other things with how does this coordinate with SSDI, workers' comp? Remember that workers' comp is only for work-related incidents. So if you can't prove that it happened on the job, which lupus and autoimmune illness and chronic illness is generally not going to happen. Even if you say, my boss was so stressful, they caused my flare. It's very difficult to prove unless you maybe take that extra step, go and journal. Even the stress and the things that your job is causing from a mental standpoint. Is PTSD, disability, depression, anxiety part of lupus? Absolutely. I mean, especially when you incorporate in the financial stress that comes with it. Yeah, absolutely. So can this cover for mental challenges as well? Yeah, it can. If you're having PTSD, anxiety, stress, it can, but it's a lot harder to prove. That's why it's important to make sure that you have these records. So that's a little bit more on eligibility, a little bit more into the weeds. I want to just take a quick pause again, figure out a little sip of water, but also see if there is any other questions or if anybody has some insights, or even if it's like, hey, I've had an experience with something like this, and you maybe need some light shed on something. I did want to take a quick pause.
I just want to remind everybody, I know there's some people that joined a little bit late, that you can put your questions in the chat. We are in a meeting, so you can unmute, which is usually on the bottom left side of the Zoom screen if you want to have a direct conversation. And also a reminder that we are recording this and it will be on the website, although we'll try to blur the names as best as possible. But just know that as you share a question that we just want to be conscientious of your privacy. But please, it's wonderful if you have questions. I know we take a lot of questions, a lot of phone calls on disability, and now's your chance to talk to a disability expert.
Maggie, I see you join. Nice to know you're here. Carlene, it's nice to see you.
Yeah, Maggie, if there's you can do it as a hypothetical. I know that you've taken a lot of questions from people. if you want to bring up something that, some situation, Maggie, that you know of. No, we still have a shy group.
A little bit. Maybe a little early for a Saturday, huh? The spring hasn't quite sprung yet enough, and but that's okay.
And we lose an hour tomorrow, tonight.
Yeah, yeah, that's crazy. Thank you for reminding me about that. So yeah, maybe not quite introverted crowd, but that's okay. A couple of other things maybe that would be good to know would be something like, hey, what's a few tips for a better approval, not a guaranteed approval. Nothing that I say is going to guarantee successful outcome, but it is designed to limit those negative outcomes. And so a couple of things that might be good to know for a faster and more clear approval is a first and foremost, like we mentioned, right off the bat is yes, make sure that your doctor submits the certification as quick as possible because the EDD is going to go back on whatever the doctor says. You cannot, once submitted, really put in any additional say unless you're in an appeal process. But after that, they're going to take the side of your doctor. So if the doctor isn't on your side, and you can feel free to fire, if they're not working with you, feel free to find another provider. But if they're not working with you or they don't agree with the outcome, find another provider. But at the end of the day, the EDD does take the doctor's word over yours. So whatever they put in those files, that's what they're going to go on. But
And
make
it's
sure that they,
49. Oh, sorry. It's
yeah,
49 days from the disability happening. So if you have to get a second opinion, then you're really kind of stretching that 49 days.
yeah, it is. It goes by quick,
Yeah.
absolutely quick. They don't offer a lot of time in this window, but the benefits do come in pretty quick. Like I said, only usually as much as 1 to 3 weeks.
Once they're
So
approved. We do have a couple of questions in the chat. The
sure,
first one is, what if you are not working and want to file for disability?
it's a good question. Unfortunately, in that instance, you are not eligible for the program. Only those who are paying into the program can receive benefits through this program. And so if you are not working, you're not going to see any state disability insurance. Does that mean you can begin working and eventually start paying into the system, or you're at a point where you can? Yes, absolutely. But no, anybody who is not working does not have access to this
So
program.
even if you were working previously, let's say you were working and then you stop working for 2 years and then the injury happens or the disability happens.
In that instance, no, you would not. However, it is possible that if you were either working or actively looking for work, and during the date of that disability, wherever that date was, you were paying into the program at that time, then you could see benefits because the date aligns with when you were a part of it. But if you were working, you stopped, at that point, it's possible that you could see benefits, but the EDD is really going to scrutinize that timeline. When did the disability start versus now? Because what they're going to say is this: did that actual impairment take you out of the workplace? Probably not, because you've stopped working and then now you're looking for disability benefits. So in this case, disability insurance would not be where you want to go to, and you would not receive it in that case. But if you were working, you stopped working, but the disability happened on that date, it's possible that you could see benefits there if the dates line up. But again, like I said, they're really going to scrutinize that timeline. So you really know you're not going to see benefits in that instance.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then the second question is age a factor when getting approved?
Great question. No, it is not a factor on getting approved. And it's not a factor on how much your income benefit is. It's not taken in consideration into if you're going to be approved or denied. As long as you are working, you are contributing into the program, your doctor signs off on the certification, and you actually are out of work, you are eligible for this benefit.
Any other questions before we proceed? Good questions.
Yeah, pretty good stuff. Good stuff.
Again, if they're not working at the time of the disability happened, but if they later on say, gee, my backache or
And
whatever
they've
the
already
disability,
stopped working. Yeah, not gonna get it. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. But again, like that would be an instance of a scrutinized timeline. It's possible that maybe you were working and then you stop, but they're gonna quit. But that's really their determination. Did that back pain pull you out of workplace, or did you just say, "Hey, I quit. I'm tired of this gig. I want to get out." And then a couple of years later down the road, you say, "I got back pain." That's not an instance for disability insurance to come on, even if you were contributing to the program at that time.
all right, thank you.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, no more questions in the chat.
Oh, good stuff though. Good stuff though. So, a few other tips on the approval side. Doctor being really important there. And also to kind of follow up a little bit on Dean's question is that they also do identify you through EDD. There's like a identify me or a verify me. So you'll have to give in some kind of a either driver's license or state issued ID. And that's going to be simply used to make sure that they know who you are. But if things like that are, I've seen like expired driver's licenses or other things, and that will actually delay you from getting your benefits. So, as part of this application process, you do need to submit and do that ID verification. Very easy though, the application. What you're going to need for it is it's really going to ask you your name, your date of birth, your social security, and it's just simply going to ask your employer's info, name, address, maybe a phone number, email for them. And then it's going to then, after your info, employer's info, it's going to share and ask you to talk about the disability, how it impacted you. This is not really the point for all the medical certification and documents. That is what your doctor will take care of. But you do need to add in describers, and you also need to let them know, hey, do you have any wages that's still maybe for part-time or modified duties? Do I have any paid time off left or sick leave? Because if you have those paid time off or sick leave, they're going to say, hey, you got to use those first. They're going to make sure that you exhaust that. And that includes vacation time. So, yes, paid time off, sick leave, vacation time. You're going to use all those things first before you get this. And why? Because when you apply, they're going to ask you in that portal, do you have any of those benefits left? You got to let them know what you have, and they will actually modify how much their benefit's going to come to you. But that's really all you need, though, in order to apply. Besides, they are going to ask you for a few, they might prompt you specific documents. They'll have a different section there that's going to be your secured document section. And it might tell you to put in XYZ, whatever it might be. Maybe it could be as simple as a driver's license. They might also ask you for financial statements like W-2. And when you submit those are all in a secured portal there. But again, going back to that, we'll make sure that you have both your medical records as best as you can, your personal journal of notes for your describers, and then also have that financial information. Either your pay stub, your W-2, your most recent tax return, whatever you need there to be able to provide income verification. So if you verify yourself, verify your ID, have your personal info and your employer info, that's really all you need to get this application through. But it's kind of knowing about those finer details of the time frame and what they're looking for and getting your doctor on board. Some of those things actually do get lost on people. Now, a couple more advanced ideas that I'm thinking of too is, hey, what if you're a part-time employee? Because you could be full-time 40 hours. Do part-time employees get this? Yes, part-time employees, again, if they're making a contribution, they do get payment from this. But again, it's going to be based on the amount of loss. So they're not going to see a full-time wage. They would see whatever that replacement is on the part-time wage or whatever they're getting. If they're also maybe only they put in 10 hours as a 1099 contractor, not quite a full-time employee, independent, they would only be seeing that 10 hours paid back to them because that's what the law says. So that's, I think, a really important concept to know, though. But don't be afraid if you're a part-time employee, don't think that this isn't for you. Check your pay stub and look and see if you have that CASD, CASDI on your pay stub. And if you're paying for it, you got it. So you don't need to be a worry about that. Now, there is a little bit of a caveat with the part-time. Oh, and I don't know, Elizabeth, does someone have a comment?
Yeah, we do have a couple of questions that have come into the chat, if you don't mind.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The first one's from James. How do you ensure a doctor accurately describes what is needed?
It's a good question. Good question. First and foremost, talk to your insurance professional like me, because we know what the carrier, what the system, and we don't want to go necessarily to the level of an attorney at this point, right? Um, Talk to your insurance professional first about how to do it, because they're going to be able to describe to you, hey, here's the best way to communicate to your doctor how this impairment is impacting your ability to work. We'll include things like specific language like modified duty and all the other jargon that will then allow the doctor to, in a more compelling way, write down the notes and get that message across to EDD. But at the end of the day, you are your best advocate. You are your best advocate. So when I say work with your doctor, I mean, yeah, make sure you kind of proofread on them. It's your record. You have every right to look at it. You have every right to look and see what they're writing about you. If you don't like what they're saying, if there's a point of confusion, if they're not capturing the full picture, you're your best advocate. So it kind of the buck stops with you on that front to some degree. It's really important to have a good doctor in your back end, but make sure that you are working with them. You advocate for yourself. And while you're doing this, don't be afraid to say, hey, doc, let me see what you're writing about me and what you're going to submit so you can help them to tailor it as well.
Yeah, because it certainly would hurt the process if it's sent in and then it has to get adjusted. So
Absolutely. Just
better to
delay
take
after
care of it in
delay.
the front end is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And then we have another question from Carlene. If you were denied previously with having lupus and reapply years later with different symptoms of lupus and get approved, will you get benefits from when you were previously denied? So basically, when the event first happened.
That's a good question. No, it wouldn't, because at that point the decision had been made, and it is now a new event that is allowing for reconsideration. Now, it's not necessarily a reconsideration of the old medical. It's just possibly there wasn't enough information the first time around. Maybe it was too severe, and so you weren't able to apply. Things can change over a period of time, 4 or 5, 10 years. And if that's the case, it would be a completely new scenario that they're looking at. And from that point on, they would have approved you for benefits to pay forward. From there, though, there could be back payments, but it's not going to be maybe a year or two ago when you first took a run at this, they said no. Now you apply later and they say yes. Unfortunately, they're not going to go that far back. There would maybe only be back pay to the point that you've reapplied. But that's because of the fact that there would already have been a decision rendered, and this would be a whole entirely separate decision.
Thank
I
you.
wish that they would be that forgiving, right? Because we know with lupus warriors particularly, they go and they start this journey, and the doctors might have no idea what's going on. 3, 4, 5 years later, now they get a lupus diagnosis. Sometimes even 7 years later, for 4 to 7 years, people are experiencing these symptoms, but the diagnosis comes in way later. So, that is the challenge on the medical front. they got to come up with better ways to diagnose and standardize that process so that we can get quicker, more accurate diagnosis. And there are people working on that. But in the financial world, there's also those challenges as well. Like how could at some point in the time there be enough money that it pay back pay like that? That yeah, people who have been disenfranchised for a while, maybe they could get their benefits. I don't know. I don't know. With the way that things are looking right now, it ain't the greatest out there in the economy and the world of finances. So,
Yeah.
but there's give
So,
and take to all these.
follow up to that question. So, the question is, okay, so it has to be the same diagnosis in order to get back benefits.
It needs to be the same time frame, but it doesn't necessarily need to be the same diagnosis. I mean, for example, we could apply for the disability. We have something, and whatever it may be, and they deny us. And then we go and apply a year later for something completely different, or even for the same thing. They're not going to pay us back pay for the same thing, even if it was the same thing. And again, we can apply for a different event or a different or even the same thing. But again, it's not going to pay you back pay there. It's really the time frame from the date of application submission up to the point of approval. And so that back pay is usually less than a month too. So we're not looking at something like, hey, you've been disabled for 3, 6 months and they're going to pay you back pay on that. The typical rate of back pay, the amount that was is really only going to be that time between about a week to 3 weeks between you put in the application and then you get the approval. If for some reason it does extend beyond that and you go through and they do actually go through reconsideration, it does happen at a much lesser rate than SSDI with Social Security. You don't have as much of a rate of disapprovals and rejections, but it can happen. If that happens, they will extend the back pay, but only if you get the approval and only if you have the doctor's certification.
So, question, this benefit is SSDI, correct? Not SSI? Or is it
No,
SS?
no, actually, this gets confusing. There's three different things that you're looking at there. All of them are S's and I's. So of course they try to confuse people. They want to make these things complicated. They need to give people like me a reason to exist. But really, they overcomplicate the matter. Um, SDI, which is what we're talking about today, is state disability insurance. And this is only available to 5 states in the United States, but California being one of them, we're focusing most of the conversation on this element today because the vast overwhelming majority of you are contributing to this program. The other two, though, where the confusion comes is SI and SSDI. SI is Social Security income. And this is actually really not for disability instances. This is really to help provide for low income individuals who might not necessarily have the means to support their basic cost of living. So you can't make a lot of money with SSI. It's not really a great solution. You're generally in the doghouse quite a bit with it. And it is not, though, disability insurance. Now, what else is in disability insurance is SSDI, Social Security Disability Income. Not quite the same as disability insurance, because with SSDI, you're not paying that insurance premium, which you kind of are paying out of your pocket. You're paying for it through your deductions. But SSDI, you are contributing that to that as well, but that's going out from your retirement contributions. So you are contributing to both of these and all these different things, but they are completely different mechanisms. SDI, the state disability insurance that we're talking about today, all for short-term disability, only going to last you for about a year. And it's that first line of defense. SSDI comes in when that disability is going to last more than a year. And maybe you have other insurances as well. You might have a group policy or an individual disability policy, and that can fit into SDI. But just to get so that it's clear for everybody and they make it so confusing, you got the state disability income, social security income for that low income scenario, and then social security disability income actually for providing for a disability scenario. So no, these are all completely different things. Hopefully that clarifies all those for everybody.
Yep. So Carlene says, thanks, Matt, for clarification.
Great,
Good.
great, very good. Yeah, that gets a little bit confusing. Like all this stuff. And then you can see why it adds on. The more you get, the deeper you go down these rabbit holes, the more you tend to find out. Eventually, though, what you come to find is that most of these, even though a lot of these scenarios are so different, and everybody's got different, I don't try to put anybody in the same boat. But even though they are really different, you come to find that there's mostly a best way to go about all of them. So you can kind of figure out where the consistency sits there.
Okay, thank you. I just want to keep track of time, 12:03. I don't know about if anybody else has something. We have Matthew here, great resource. There's any other questions, or I know that the interaction has delayed maybe your presentation if there's another critical piece. I mean, people can drop off if they don't have the time, but if there's another critical piece you want to go over, it'd be great.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. I mean, I definitely want to respect everybody's time. I do appreciate that we've already gone over. Um, if somebody has something to say that's more important than any other, that they really want, this is the time though. Um, and I'm sure that we'll come up with more times in the future for more of these kinds of stuff. But maybe we'll
Yes.
talk all about Social Security disability next time, so you can hear a little bit. Hey, what does that look like compared to this? This is a California benefit, so take advantage of it. And know that it is out there for you guys. Couple other things that might be really, really important to know is like, can I work multiple jobs and get it? Maybe if both those jobs are applying, and you're contributing both of those. Yeah, if you got both those situations and you're losing income and can prove it, yeah, absolutely. If you're on unemployment though, and that's different. If you need to switch to disability, you would switch. You can't get unemployment and state disability income at the same time. You can't get both. So if you're on unemployment, just know that if this becomes a disability scenario, they would actually switch that for you. There's somewhat of a complicated process to do that, but that would have to happen if you were on unemployment while this is happening. Then maybe you decide, hey, I don't think I can get back to work. So I think that that's really important for anyone there. And some other really important things, like we kind of talked about, if it started after you stopped working, yeah, you're going to be denied there. You're going to be denied there. Just unfortunately, maybe one of these days they'll open that avenue up a little bit more, but I don't really know. I don't know if that can happen. And yeah. What I will just say though is, again, to not take up too much time, if there isn't any other questions, let me just end it with, what are the red flags that just leads to denial? And I won't take everyone's time here, but I think this is the last critical important piece. What if they see this? Are they just gonna write you off? And it might not even be worth your time, but definitely something to check into is, A, if the disability start date doesn't match the work timeline. So we're talking about applying at the right time. If those timelines don't match up, they are going to deny you. And they call you the claimant. You're receiving these benefits. So when you look at these that's what they're going to refer to you as. You are the claimant. So in any of these things that you see, whenever they're referring to the claimant, they're referring to you, the person who's going to receive these benefits. But if the timeline doesn't work out, that's going to be an automatic write out. The other red flag is if your doctor submits it and it's incomplete. they submit a certificate for you and it's incomplete in any way, shape, or form, it's automatically written off. So make sure that no piece, that's why it kind of is good to he's holding their hand while they're doing it. Make sure that you have every right. You have every right. It's your doctor, it's your notes. And if they don't do it, fire them. But they have that 49-day window. They got to get in. It can't be incomplete in any way, shape, or form. That's an automatic. I know right off the bat that they're not going to let you go in. The other thing that's going to be an automatic red flag is if you put in a claim and then you go back to work. They don't like that at all. They do not like that at all. They will not only trigger the denial, but they might, the next time around, they're going to really scrutinize you. So do not do that. If you put in a claim and you decide I don't need it, it's not enough money, I think I can get back to work, make sure that you go in and revert the claim. That's all you need to do. Just let them know. But if you go and you work after, it's not good. They're not going to like that at all. They're going to deny you for it, and it could actually impair you from getting those benefits later on down the road. To Dean's point, anything with the documentation, I really am a big fan of journaling. And if you need help with it, I don't know if you guys mind, but there is it may mind me saying this on here, but there is a website called lupusdisability.com. Helps you out with all the journaling. And maybe we'll talk about how we can get some California lupus resources on there too. But it helps you basically put in anything you need for journaling, outline your disability. It's got all the resources that you need. And we don't really have the full California portal out yet that's specific to this. But for your other disability, for logging it, for journaling it, it has all these different tools in there. So it makes it a little bit easier in this digital world. Click a button and it lets you log in some things so that when you go back to your doctor, they can say, hey, here's a clean record. They really have their scenario laid out here. And if you are really down to the point like, hey, I spoke to Dr. XYZ at this time about this, they know you're serious. They're going to take you serious. So
So
strong
that's
doc.
lupusdisability.com.
Yes, yes, yep. It's got a full toolkit in there, teach you resources, but also it's got the full stuff so that you can log your symptoms and actually journal whatever you need to get in. It does have some things to help you apply for SDI as well. So if you want to go through that, it's all in there. It's supposed to kind of put all this in a simpler process to show you how to do it. But this is a little bit different with the state benefit. We'll add this portal in there at some point so that it does have the California specific stuff, and then you get a little bit better. But definitely also as well talk about how we can add California Lupus Foundation in there, so that they can have some good stuff.
All right. Any other questions before we let Matthew go? I don't see any in the chat. You're welcome to unmute if you'd like. Gosh, Matthew, wonderful presentation. Again, I did listen to your first one, and that was the webinar. I do like the interactive for people to ask questions, during. But wonderful resource. This is a pain point for a lot of people. You gave us a lot of good points to consider, and certainly knowing about that 49-day clock, that's very important. But I want to thank you. I want to thank everybody who participated in questions. If you have follow-up questions, we can get them to Matthew if we can't provide the answer to them. So feel free to email us or at info@californialupus.org. Or you could do outreach at californialupus.org. That gets you to Maggie Madueno. So everybody knows Maggie and she can help you out as well. Thanks again, Matthew. It's been wonderful. Glad to finally meet you. And
Yes.
I appreciate your time, appreciate everybody's time. As a reminder, you will receive an email following up from our communications director, Lori Day. Since this is not a webinar, you won't get it automatically generated. So an email will go out asking for your feedback on this presentation. And again, have a wonderful Saturday. Don't forget, tonight you have to set forward your clocks. You spring forward. We're going to lose an hour. So that's just a reminder for everybody. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And thanks again, Matthew. Very, very informative.
Oh, thank you guys. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I am so pleased to be able to support a great organization like California Lupus Foundation. And here's to many more with you guys. I only wish you guys the best. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Take care. Thanks.